Yeah, or yeah. Quit being
You want it, how quick you want it now? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's not really that close to Christmas, but a lot of times hey, Tom, I mean, historically, we've always canceled the last meeting in December.
Wow. Like Grinch over in the corner there.
That's right. Yeah, me too.
Well, I want you to show up for that meeting wearing the Grinch outfit too. That'd be
I think we got Thursday morning, right? I just, yeah, but I can't see the report to make sure. I gotta learn how to get to all the reports.
All right, good afternoon. I'm calling the December 5th meeting of the Amherst County Board of Supervisors to order. The time is 3 p.m. Board, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. The agenda is approved. Mr. Pugh, would you lead us in an invocation?
Certainly will. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you today to do the business of the county. We ask that you provide us with the knowledge, wisdom, and insight to do what's pleasing to you and what's pleasing to the citizens of the county. We ask that you give your helping hand to our EMTs, our police officers, and all of our public county employees. Dear Lord, we ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. You join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on to our citizen comment period. Is there anyone signed up? Is there anyone that would like to address the board? If you would come forward and state your name and what you're representing, and you will have 3 minutes. Right here, please, sir.
I might ask for a minute or two more than 3 if I might. I'm David Hawkins. I represent Narayan Properties, and I know you have that on your agenda later on today to pass. And I'm here to ask you to consider postponing that for a while, and I'll tell you why. We believe, number one, there are issues with the procedures that have been followed by the county. If this does go through on the 19th, we would have no choice but to file an action against the county to prevent it from going through. That doesn't benefit anybody. It's not something we want to do. We want to be able to work with the county, and that's our goal. But we believe that we can do some things that would save taxpayers money, avoid litigation, and help everybody. Briefly, a little bit of the history about the property. In 2019, we were just before the pandemic, and the property was declared or going to be declared a blight by the county. Mr. Narayan had a couple of convenience stores. He had this, had a trucking business. He wanted to build a new motel, and he wanted to demolish it, so we agreed to that. Then the pandemic hits. Well, what happens then? Businesses go in the tank. You can't get financing. There were financial reversals on the part of the owners as well. And then things come to a halt. After that, I know for a fact that Narayan Properties and Mr. Narayan tried to obtain new motels to go there. And I personally worked with him on Howard Johnson's Motel 6, Wyndham, extended stay. But because of the economic times, nothing was going through at that time. He worked with the county to say we'd demolish part of it, the main part of the building. The other part was left because it was valuable for another hotel. It could be incorporated into any of these new structures. And the plans I worked with him on for those, it did incorporate that. So that was there by agreement. But due to the pandemic, banks wouldn't finance and hotels were being cautious. Now, today, the property is on the market for sale. They have a realtor. I know the realtor has been in contact with Mr. Bryant, and it's a legitimate hotel site. And I have here a printout that I'd like to hand around just of something about the realtor. And he sent an email that I sent on to Mr. Bryant saying that, pass along an update on the development site. We currently have 31 people who have shown strong interest in the site and to whom I've spoken with regarding it. We're still making second and third calls to a lot of these buyers, along with cold calls in the area to push buyers on the deal. It's only been on the market a few months, so that's not very long. I know that buyers are still being cautious, but the prospects are good according to the realtor, and it just needs time to sell it to a new developer. Leaving the existing structures on the property makes it more marketable to a hotel buyer who would come in and incorporate those in a new structure. The proposal I'd like to make is a win-win both for the county and for the economic development in the area and for everyone involved. If we postpone, or if you're willing to postpone or table it for now, it doesn't mean you can't come back and do something later on. Number one, it saves taxpayer dollars. If the county steps in, it must fund requests for bids, supervise demolition, pay for the demolition, and pay attorneys to provide services related to all of that. Now, the county could get some of the money back, but it may not. There's no guarantee that will happen. If there's litigation, nobody gains from that, maybe except the lawyers. Not that I've particularly objected to that in the past, but I don't prefer it as the way to go. And that doesn't speed things up. You don't file something to slow things down intentionally. But right now, the last cases I was setting them in November of 2024. So it doesn't speed things up. And then I know the philosophy of this board. The philosophy of this board is to be conservative, to favor private interest over the idea that government can step in and do something better than private enterprise. My suggestion and request is that you let private enterprise handle this issue. The property be sold, there'll be a new developer on board. That'll be what the county wants, and it'll happen much quicker. And we'd make that request. It doesn't cost the county a dime. It doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime. And postponing it for some period of time to allow that to happen would be a win-win, I think, for both sides.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me today.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? State your name, address.
Good afternoon, board members of the board. Mr. Chair, my name is Norm Walton. I'm with Perkins and Orson. I represent Sam Patel in the Madison Heights Town Center project. You have before you an ordinance change later that I would like to discuss. One of the things I'd like to mention is we're thankful that the T&D here is in Amherst County. The only other T&Ds I know of in this area are in the city. We think the opportunity to be here in the county gives us a little more flexibility than in the city. The ordinance change that we're requesting is asking to have a little flexibility in the maximum setbacks. So we all are familiar with minimum setbacks, but there's also a part of the ordinance that prohibits a structure from being so far away from the right-of-way, a maximum setback. And what we're asking for is flexibility with considerations of topography and land uses to allow us to have a special exception request where we can ask for the maximum setbacks to be larger. For instance, if there's a house, the maximum setback right now is 15 feet. A normal parking space is 20 feet, so it really doesn't even allow us room enough to provide a normal depth parking space at 15 feet to clear the bumper off the sidewalk. The main roadway coming in is at a 10% grade. As you've gone through Madison Heights, you've probably seen the retaining wall that's being formed beside the hotels that are being built now. And that is because of the grade differential between the finished floor of the hotels and the roadway. So it's going to be, roughly a 12-foot wall. So the roadway is going to be 12 foot higher than the finished floor of the first hotel, it has already made these setbacks a considerable, almost insurmountable task to maintain. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and give you my thoughts on this. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walton. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? If you would come forward and state your name and address, please, or district.
Sure. I'm Sam Patel. I'm in Drew's district, I believe. As Norm was mentioning, we do have a code change in front of you, and I just want to explain why we're asking for this. The TND, it's a great ordinance. It's a great idea, and in a flat place where you can build a grid system, it works wonderfully. Unfortunately, as you've driven down 29, you'll notice there's about a 70-foot differential between where Business 29 is and the creek on the front of the property. Because of that, topographical challenge, it makes it almost impossible to build parallel to the road. The buildings have to go perpendicular. And as you build perpendicular buildings, they get farther and farther away from the road. And because all of these roads are VDOT roads, you really can't build roads between any apartment buildings that you build in the front. It really completely ties your hands in the ability to build anything in the front. So we're not asking for a blank check. What we're asking for is the ability to come back and ask for permission to do something that exceeds that setback. So, that's the purpose of this. We know there's been some discussion about maybe just writing in a maximum setback in the code versus leaving it as a special exception. The problem with that is it really just ties your hands from the design perspective, and really what you can build up front in that area between the road and the creek. As it stands right now, it's basically unbuildable unless you're able to deviate from that 15-foot setback to something much larger, really, for a second set of buildings that would be parallel to that first building or in line with 29. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board? All right, hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to ordinances. This is the first read of ordinance 2023-9 zoning and subdivisions. Mr. Creasy.
Yes, sir. Chairman, board, good to see you all. As you mentioned, the board is conducting a first read for ordinance 2023-9. The purpose of this ordinance is to allow recreational dwellings and for the spouse of a qualified family member to be added to a family division plat. I'd like to go over the second part first. It's kind of simple. Right now, state code, as you know, we are a Dillon Rule state, so our powers come from the state above. And in their state code, they clearly designate that a qualified or a spouse of a qualified family member should be allowed to be added on to a family division plat. Right now, our code does not allow for such, so this would just make sure that we are in conformance with state code. And then moving on to the second part of this ordinance in regards to recreational dwellings, this comes from a request from a citizen named Gary Friend, who would like to see this change happen. And discussion has happened prior to this meeting. So if you all are okay with everything before you, your motion would change slightly to include the changes I'm about to go over. And those are in regards to the definition of a recreational dwelling. As it currently stands, the definition reads, "A cabin or other similar unit used for hunting, fishing, camping, or similar temporary recreational activities and occupied less than 180 days a year and not for a period not exceeding 30 consecutive days." So the proposed change to this would be to, one, there would be an additional sentence that would be added that states recreational dwellings cannot be used as a short-term tourist rental of a dwelling. And then in addition to that, where we talk about a cabin or other similar units, we would clearly exclude campers to make it clearly known to applicants that you cannot use a camper as a recreational dwelling. If you choose to camp using a camper, you would then, of course, have to follow our camping ordinance, which is already in place. So those are the two changes that staff would like to bring before you in regards to Ordinance 9. And with that being said, there is a recommended motion. And are there any questions for staff?
Board, is there a motion?
I move that the board instruct staff to advertise ordinance 2023-9 for a public hearing
And is that as amended?
as amended.
Thank you, sir. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I vote aye. Motion passes. All right, moving on to ordinance 2023-10, spot blight abatement. Mr. Bryant.
Yes, sir. This is the property at 4512 South Amherst Highway. The board's being asked to consider the adoption of the spot blight ordinance. And a little history I'll give you back on this, and this was mentioned earlier. September the 3rd, 2019, the county administrator at that time, in accordance to section 36.3 and 3649.11 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, he made a preliminary determination that the property located at 4512 South Amherst Highway constituted a spot blight as resulted in the condition of the property, which endangered the public health, safety, and general welfare. On November the 4th, 2019, the property owner entered into a rehabilitation agreement with the county in an attempt to abate the blight conditions on the property. To date, the owner has failed to comply with the rehabilitation agreement. Staff recommends the adoption of the attached ordinance setting forth the county's blight abatement plan that will authorize the demolition of the structures on the property at the cost of the property owner. So what's before you today is a first reading. We're asking you to move this to a public hearing that we would set on December the 19th, 2023, to consider the adoption of this ordinance to declare the property spot blight. We believe that the property is still a blight to the community. Included in your packet are a number of notice of violations that your building official, Nate Young, who's here with us today, has prepared and made part of this packet. The property, in our opinion, again, also remains out of compliance with the agreement that both Narayan and the county signed back in 2019. Is there any questions for staff?
Board. I have a question for Mr. Young. Thank you. Yes, sir. Since September 3rd of 2019, which is over 4 years ago, has there been any significant movement towards rehabilitating that property?
I do not know the date of the demolition of the first half of the property, but since we finalized that part off, no, there's not been.
Okay, thank you very much. Board, what's your pleasure?
I'll move that a public hearing be set for December 19th, 2023 to consider the adoption of ordinance 2023-10 as presented.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion passes. Moving on to ordinance 2023-11, multifamily dwellings. Ms. Parisi.
Yes, sir. Chairman, Board. As you mentioned, the Board is conducting another first read in regard to Ordinance 2023-11. The proposed change would allow for multifamily dwellings to exceed the 15-foot maximum front yard setback through a special exception in the residential sub-areas of the MUT&D zoning district. That's important to note. There are three areas within there. You have your neighborhood center, which is really the core area. You have your open space, and then the residential sub-areas, which are the periphery of course, to the core area, and so this is talking about that periphery zone, the residential areas around the core. The proposed code change illustrates several standards which the commission and, of course, the Board of Supervisors would use in making their recommendations and decisions. These standards include additional landscaping is provided on the frontage of the buildings to soften the building facade with a mixture of small and medium shrubs. No parking in the building fronted except on-street parking. Pedestrian connectivity is provided to the adjoining streets between the setback being increased and the new right-of-way. And the buildings are arranged and a layout is provided that is harmonious with the overall mixed-use traditional neighborhood master plan for development in the neighborhood residential sub-areas. So these are standards that the commission and you all would use in order to determine if a special exception is either in conformance with the special exception guidelines and the mixed-use traditional neighborhood district. There is no set standard for the setback in which those buildings would be. That standard would be set through the special exception. So this code change does not set a standard for those buildings, but if the applicant, if somebody chooses to exceed that 15-foot maximum setback, they would come before you all, and that distance would be set during the public hearing. With that being said, there is a recommended motion in your item summary, and are there any questions for staff?
Board.
Yes, can you give me an example of what this would mean? Are you saying the setback would be further than 15 feet off the road? Is that
Correct.
what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
So,
Right now, a multifamily, this is only for multifamily dwellings, so apartments. This is not for townhouses or single-family dwellings or even duplexes, only for apartment buildings. Right now, whatever, if it's an awning or whatever, is the closest to the road, the maximum setback from the right-of-way line and that building structure can only be 15 feet. It cannot go past it. This code change would allow them to exceed that 15-foot setback and be further away from the right-of-way line.
and exactly how would this help? It would allow them to build on land that's not topographically correct for
Correct.
the current zoning. I think that's what I heard.
It's not, the topography does not lay well for these size of buildings going down through there. As you know, in Amherst County, we barely have any flat land. And so the entranceway of this development, of course, comes off of 29, goes into a ravine where Williams Run goes down through, and then goes back up to where the area gets flatter. This is not only for the upper section, potentially some other sections in the back of the development. However, up towards 29, it slopes down, and due to that grade and how you have to situate the buildings, the developer believes this is the most viable option.
Right. I guess, and so this will be brought, because we've seen plans before of the property, and it's been brought before us, and we've approved the plans and so forth. So would this be brought back before us?
Right. So, correct. So, for instance, the section in which he is looking for this request is currently not zoned mixed-use traditional neighborhood. It's currently zoned commercial. It's where the Executive Inn is. So he, one, has to come back through a rezoning to rezone that portion of the property, and he also has to do another master plan change to incorporate that into his master plan. In addition to that, if this code change was passed, anytime he wanted a multifamily building to exceed that 15-foot setback, he would then come before you all again to have that use approved.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Wade, any questions? No questions. Okay. I have some concerns with it, the way it's written, and I've spoken with Mr. Walton and staff about it. I would urge you to go back and look at those prior to it coming before us for a public hearing. I think the entire point of a T&D is to have those walkable communities. I understand topographical challenges and those types of things, yet I think we have standards for a reason. I don't believe in just leaving it open-ended. I'm a little bit more comfortable in the fact that it would require separate public hearings. You know, and quite frankly, if it's too steep for multifamily buildings, that might not be the best use for it right there. Maybe you should be doing townhomes or single family. I don't know. But comfortable enough to move this forward, but I think you need to be, staff and the developer needs to be having some more conversations on it. So with that, I'd move that the board direct staff to advertise ordinance 2023-11 for a public hearing. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All right, next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. I would like to point out that at our previous Service Authority meeting, one of the things on here is a appropriation to the Recreation Department for a water leak. I believe the Service Authority will split that water leak with us on a one-time basis. So it won't be as much as in the consent agenda, but I'm comfortable moving forward with the way it's written for now. So is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
All right, I'm sorry.
Oh, never mind, go ahead.
All right. Before we move forward, the holiday leave time, can we pull that off the consent agenda? I'd just like to have a little bit of discussion about that. All right, is that okay?
That's fine. I'll retract my
I'm-
motion. and
I'm
make
sorry.
another-
Thank you.
Another motion. So moved, sans holiday leave.
For A, B, and C, right? All right, motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. I vote aye. Okay, holiday leave time. My understanding is the state changed their policy for Christmas, and it only gives you 4 hours on Christmas Eve. Is that correct?
It's the day before that weekend. We usually get that full day, the 26th.
Yeah, so to me, it would make sense to me that whatever the state does, we just give our employees Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off. I mean, does that make sense to y'all? All right, so I would put that motion on the floor moving forward for longevity. Everybody gets Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off. Is that good?
Sometimes it falls on the weekends. So it's 2
Whatever, but you know what I'm saying, right? All right, motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I vote aye. Merry Christmas. Okay, Firefly. Who is doing this? Is this Mr. Creekmore or Mrs. Gang? Please come forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for adding Firefly to the agenda. We're very excited to be here today. I know we were just here a couple months ago, so we'll do just a quick overview of where the project stands today, and then we will get to the point of being asked to be added to the agenda today, which is an upcoming ability to apply for a VATI grant that would cover additional addresses in Amherst County. So looking at your map here, just to get reacclimated to all the areas, the blue areas are in service. That's mostly co-op and CARES areas. The green are all under fiber construction. Those are Appalachian Power areas. And then the beige colors, we've got our make-ready work going on in each of those areas. Next, you'll see our chart here. We've made some updates online to the project timelines even since I've sent this along. But we do have Temperance in service, and we do have more addresses now on Heartless Road and Rose's Mill. We're connecting in those areas. We're finishing that up. We'll move over to the Nelson side of Rose's Mill. Next, Pleasant View, also Buffalo Springs Turnpike area. We were hoping that we would have those starting in fall. We know that fall ends December 22nd. And with things winding down for the holiday, we imagine that's going to slide into December. But they are indeed working on the mainline fiber construction in the Pleasant View area, so we're very excited. Just as a reminder, we'll start from the co-op territory that's up 635. We'll pick up from the fiber there and move over into these areas in Pleasant View. Then we'll hook back around and get Elon, Sweet Hills, and go down into Madison Heights. We are still trucking away at Winton. We are building the fiber in Winton, and we are relying very heavily on Appalachian Power to complete their make-ready work. So we've managed to get the railroad crossing there. We have had a special meeting regarding the highway crossing that'll be needed across 29. Once that make-ready work is done by Appalachian Power, Firefly will be there. We are building the fiber around it. We are prioritizing and looking at our Tusculum area because we know we've got the density there, so we'll be looking to get into that space. For Elin, we have moved that to a spring timeline. We've got to get through all of our Pleasant View areas and then bring that light around up by the National Forest and then come back down through Elin and Sweet Hills. So those are our timelines as it stands today. And then if you have a look at the county here, this is very exciting to see. Amherst County, you want to see your county all in blue, meaning that you do not have underserved or unserved areas for broadband when you're looking at the blue areas. However, we couldn't help but notice when the FCC issued their new map that you've got some dots. Those red dots indicate unserved areas in Amherst County. So we have looked at all of our counties, across 14 counties that we're working with for internet, for all of the dots, and we would like to submit another VATI application for this round to cover all of the unserved and underserved areas in Amherst County. That being said, I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can kind of get your bearings and see. You'll be surprised to see all of the red dots in the Amherst area, even down through Madison Heights, Monroe, and over to Elin. So we have looked literally house by house to make sure that we can incorporate all of these homes into a new application. So this is the Amherst area. You can recognize you've got Sweetbriar down here, the Briar Patch, the shopping center. And so getting into these areas using the VATI grant allows us to get the fiber into the area so that we can come back with non-grant dollars and build out our infrastructure to offer Firefly to homes that may have another service right now. Certainly, we wouldn't be able to use grant dollars to do that, but it gets the fiber into place where we'll want it for future growth. And if you look here, this is the Madison Heights, Elin area, and I'm going to do just a quick back and forth so you can see this. So these are the red dots, and then if you look at the same area, the green, these are your served areas. So you can really see the problem there, that red area that's over to the west, that's the tail end of Winesap as it goes up towards 130. You can really see the pockets, not just spread apart like this one. It really makes an impact to see in each of these areas. So we've done the looking, and we've talked with the staff, and we come before you today to ask for you to consider allowing Amherst County to be entered into this application. So we have found an additional 410 passings within Amherst County that are unserved or underserved and would be eligible for inclusion in our grant application, which is an additional 32 miles and $1.9 million investment from Firefly. We came to the county 2 years ago and asked for a county match for all the areas to be tossed into that very large application, which we thought was a universal application until the maps have been updated. Today, we come before you to ask for $0 for an investment. We would just ask for the board, if it would be your wish, to approve the resolution to have Amherst County included in our application.
Board, any comments? I do have one, if that's okay. Did you have a comment?
No, I was just gonna say
Oh,
thank you
okay.
for
So,
sharing this.
yeah, absolutely, thank you. But
You're
how
welcome.
would you respond to one of my constituents that says, I know Firefly is coming in for another VATI grant. The county administrator said there wasn't any money commitment from the county, but Firefly hasn't fulfilled the previous commitment. We still don't have access to reliable internet. It's frustrating to see them coming for another grant and committing to more areas when they haven't finished the first phases of the original project. I'm ready to give up and sign up for Starlink. I'm just so frustrated. How would you respond to those people?
I would say that I understand the frustration, absolutely. We hear this in all of our rural areas. I will just go back a slide here to say Firefly has just celebrated 25,000 connections in rural central Virginia. And so while we may not be able to move as quickly in some areas as others, we've been as realistic and as honest and transparent as we can be about timelines, about roadblocks, all while keeping friends with our partners. We don't need to point fingers, but we certainly have had a series of delays on certain projects. I don't know which area this constituent is from, probably in your neighborhood. But I will draw your attention to all of the blue area here and the green that is underway and the plans that are here. We've certainly had success in Nelson County for a universal build and other counties. And while I understand that this has been frustrating, I would just ask our fellow Amherst County residents to know that we are the local choice, that we are here to fulfill what we have started, and that some areas, whether it's a railroad crossing or a highway crossing, that we'd be happy to talk with that individual about exactly what is preventing service in their area, and we'd be happy to take that call anytime.
Great. I'll relay that to this person. So, one thing you mentioned, though, you mentioned Tusculum,
Yes.
which is in my district. It's not my neighborhood, but it's near there. So you mentioned there was density there enough for you to move forward. What about further up Fletcher's level?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The intent is all the way. So we're sort of looking at that. Are you going up the mountain or are you staying here, and any crossings or?
Point being, you're not going to forget about the other area.
Absolutely
Okay.
not. And as you can see from our intent for the new VATI grant is that we don't want to forget about any area in Nelson County, not just the Winton area that was already laid out in the plans from the VATI 2022 grant, but we don't want to forget any area, even if they're in an area that's primarily Comcast and they're showing up as unserved or underserved, or they have nothing. Either side of the spectrum, we don't want to leave out anyone in Amherst County.
Thank you. Mr. Wade, did you have a motion?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and make it. I move that the board adopt resolution 2023-18-R as presented.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Thank you for what you're doing. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
and thank you.
All right, moving on. New employee introduction of Miss Sarah Nichols, and that's going to be done by Mr. Creasy.
Chairman, Board, good to see you all again. It's my pleasure to introduce you all to Sarah Nichols. She started with us on November 6th. As many of you probably know, she's an Amherst County native, Virginia Tech grad, so we won't hold that against her. But she got her degree in environmental science, which works out great for our department. And then soon after that, she spent 20 years at the health department. So with that being said, she's already making a difference, but she's not only going to be a great asset for planning and zoning, but for our department as a whole with all of her experience that she has and the assets and the people that she already knows in the community. And she's already making that difference felt. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce you to Sarah.
Oh, Sarah?
Thank you. I am Sarah Nichols. I am Amherst County native. I grew up on the side of Tobacco Row Mountain. My parents still live in the Elon community. I went to Elon Elementary, Manellus Middle School, Amherst High School, followed by Virginia Tech. And I have worked at the Amherst County Health Department and all up and down Amherst County since 2004, as soon as I graduated college. So glad to still be here, glad to keep serving, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, we are glad you are here, and you get Christmas Eve off.
May I say something?
Oh, do you want to?
Well, it's good to have her on board. I know she'll do a good job. I'm
Absolutely.
familiar with Sarah, and welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Bryant?
I just want to echo that. We're really, really pleased that we were able to send the fishing net down to the bottom level of this building and pull her up here. We're very fortunate to have her. She's served on our development review committees for a long time now and been a part of our team in a different capacity, but we're really happy to have her.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to the, what is next? County Attorney's Report.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing that I would have to offer today is that the trial date for the Town of Amherst versus County of Amherst, Amherst Life Saving Crew case has been set for March 8th at 10:30.
Thank you. And you will be there, I'm assuming? Okay.
Most definitely.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Popovich?
Yes.
All right. All right, Mr. Pugh, do you have any updates from the Planning Commission?
Well, one thing came before us today, that was regarding the multifamily dwellings, which we discussed earlier. We had a FEMA map update. All the property owners have been, that will be affected, have been mailed the information. Interject Solar, their appeal has been moved to the February 20th meeting, so that's when that will come before us, and other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. All right, moving on to departmental reports, we have Mr. Jason Metter with us to give us the annual report from the Social Services Board. Welcome.
Today,
Good.
asked by my board chair to give this presentation for them on their behalf, so here I am. But Mr. Parrish sends his regards. Like I said, I'm Jason Metter. I'm the Department of Social Services Director. Just going to give you guys a brief overview of how we've been doing this year, and then feel free to ask any questions as they come up. Like I said, I'm the director. My administrative services manager, Rob McFadden, is also here in the audience if you have any budget-related questions or anything that goes along those lines. All right, the mission. We're going to offer timely, appropriate quality services to individuals and families in order to promote self-sufficiency and to protect children and adults. And then I just wanted to give you guys a list of some of the services we offered because, quite honestly, a lot of people just don't know what we do. This is not an all-comprehensive list, but it is a lot of what we do. You guys got any specific questions about anything up there? All right. I'll give you guys a quick look at how we're organized here. Right now, we have 48 positions. As of today, I think 47 are filled. We just hired somebody that started this week, and then we have 2 Liberty University interns that are getting ready to start at the beginning of the year. That's up from 39 we had this time last year. So we're making good progress, and a lot of that has to do with the market study adjustment we got from you guys, which we really appreciate. We were having a hard time people applying for these lower paying jobs, especially on the administrative side. And the foster care, CPS, APS all require bachelor's degrees, and the salary doesn't match, honestly, so market adjustment did help a lot. And then I'm going to just go over the local profile report from state fiscal year 2023. This is an auto-generated report that comes from the state. It's not necessarily 100% accurate or up to date, but it's pretty close. Just going to break down some statistics and figures that I think may be of interest to the board and the community. So the first one I've got up here is just kind of a breakdown of the population. Right now, I think we're at right over 31,000 people in the community or the county. Things to look at here is we have about 3,700 people that are considered below the poverty line in Amherst County, which is about 12% of the population. Just for your reference, poverty line as of this year is $14,500 a year per person and $30,000 per family unit. We're actually up 1% in the poverty levels from last year, according to this report. This is Alice Households chart. Alice is assisted asset limited income, restrained, and employed, which is basically, they're saying they're above the poverty level, but still don't meet the basic income requirements to live comfortably. So when you add this into the equation, it jumps from 12% poverty level to about 29% below the Alice level, according to the state. Some of the highlights here is just, this is basically showing the people under 65 that are uninsured right now, which is about 10%, almost 11% of the population. Another interesting chart here for you guys to look at. It's children living in a single-parent household and non-marital teen births in the county. They're pretty consistent over the last 10 years. Non-marital births right now are at about 40% in the county. This just kind of shows you how to get an idea of our process benefits numbers. You're looking at our major programs here, SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, and child care. Just kind of gives you an overview of how many received plus compared to how many we closed. We are at or above state levels for all of these things. Another chart here. Main thing to look at here, we got around 11,176 people who receive at least one of our major benefits programs. Like I said before, SNAP, TANF, and Medicaid. If you add family services contacts such as CPS reports, APS reports, or in-home cases we have open, it shows that we contact about 40% of the whole county. Comes through social services at this point. Interesting to note that that jumps up from only 31% back in 2021.
You said 40%?
Yes, 40% of the county comes through our department in some way or shape or form. Breakdown of our family services unit. This shows our children in foster care, CPS, APS referrals, and our in-home services. As of right now, I guess of today, we have 24 foster kids in our care, which is pretty high, especially for our staffing levels. 3 of those are in the Fostering Future program, which is where do you go when you turn 18. If you want to stay in, we give them additional support until they're, I think, 21, I think is the limit, but it's still 24 care. 24 foster kids is a lot. And the last page is the most interesting to you guys, I think. Feel free to look at this and digest it as much as you want to. But the main thing to look at here is our revenue stream. Local revenue we have produced this year is about $107 million. That's an increase of $13.7 million from last year. The local share of that is only $1.6 million, which is only 1.3 of our budget. So basically what you need to learn from this is that we ask for the bare minimum that's required from the county. Everything else is mandated by the state and federal government. Like I said, we produced over $13.7 million in revenue with only a $1.6 million investment, which is only 1.3% of our budget, and only 0.2% of that is non-reimbursable. And this is up slightly from last year as well, a couple $1 million. That's really all I have to present. Just want to give you all a quick overview of what we were doing and what we provided. I'm not sure if you guys have any questions about anything specifically. Or want me to modify this report in any way for next year, just feel free to let me know.
Board? Mr. Wade?
Just one question back to the chart that shows, I guess, the children in the single-family homes. Just based on my experience, is there double dipping there? Say both parents live in Amherst County, do you count both homes, or do you count the child twice?
No.
I think that if that data is driven from OASIS, which is our foster care and.
Could you come to the mic, please? Thank you.
Sorry.
I don't have the exact answer that you guys are looking for, but we can get it for you.
Okay, I was just curious.
My assumption would be yes, because they do,
Count it twice?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
So, I'm not sure if it's a question or comment. 40% of our county citizens are receiving benefits through your office.
Well, it's not quite 40% getting like Medicaid or TANF or SNAP or anything, but if you factor in the people that we have CPS cases for, or respond for APS cases, or have in-home services available, then it is 40%.
That's astounding
Yes.
to me. I mean, do you see any trends of why? I mean, is it employment? Is it education? Is it medical conditions? What-
It's generational, I think. It's all those things. The poverty level gets raised every year. People the government has made it easier to get benefits and qualify for those things, and they put in for it and they get it. Just based on the number of people we have and their income levels, they're automatically going to be qualified for all these things and put in for it. As
How
far
does
as
that compare to surrounding localities?
we're pretty comparable, especially
Really?
in the Piedmont region.
Well, I was hoping we could end on a happy note, but, and I'm not making light of it. I mean, that's a very serious, sobering statistic, really.
Do generate 107 million into the local economy, though.
Thank you so much. All right. No, I mean, we'll appreciate that. All right, moving on to, we're back at citizen comment. Are there any citizens present that would like to address the board? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to matters from the members of the Board of Supervisors. Mr. Pugh?
I have nothing.
Mr. Wade?
Nothing today, sir?
I have nothing. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We stand adjourned. Hurry up, we just got a fire call.